Hey Dan, hey Nikki. It's the Sunday after Valentine's Day, and I have recently returned, as of yesterday, from the planet Hoth with Duncan, Marshall, and Preston. And I thought it was finally time to make a video about curling. As you probably both know, I'm a part of a curling league. We curl every Thursday night. Our end-of-year Bonspiel is coming up. If you don't know what a Bonspiel is, then when I get to the section of this video on curling terminology, I'll tell you all about it. But the league is great. We actually play in Centerville, population 723, which is really at the crossroads of two highways just across the river from Winona in Wisconsin. And they have 3 or 4 bars. They have a bank. Can't think of if they have a church. They must have a church, right? Every little town has a church. But they have a curling center and community center, which is just awesome. Anyway, so that's where we curl every Thursday night. The great thing about this curling league is that when we get together, there are 4 sheets, and at the end of a night's curling, there's one team whose job it is, not one of the teams playing on any given night, but one team in the league whose job it is to cook every Thursday night. So after the match, the 2 teams that were playing each other sit down together and eat dinner. The losing team ends up paying for the winning team. It's essentially $2.50 per person, so each person on the losing team has to pay $5. And it's very civil. It's very fraternal. It can be what's the female version of fraternal? Anyway, because they have women's leagues too and mixed leagues. I personally wouldn't mind playing in a mixed league. I'm actually waiting right now. Here's the phone right now from a call from the Olympic British women's team, but so far the phone's not rung. Anyway, I thought that I would just give you guys a little bit of a curling primer. I was at the Y the other day working out, and in the kind of lounge room in the men's locker room, a bunch of the guys are in watching curling, and one guy said, "Man, I have no idea what's going on here." And I spent the next 10 minutes telling them about the rules and some of the history, and oddly, everyone was asleep by the time I was done talking. But anyway, so let's start with a little bit of curling history. Curling started in Scotland. All curling stones are made of granite, and they all curling stones worldwide come out of only 2 quarries, one in Scotland and one in Wales. Dan, part of your itinerary, tell Sarah this, for when you guys go to Wales later this year, is to go to the quarry where they quarry the curling stones, the stone for the curling stones, and I want you to get me a piece of granite. That's all I ask. I'm not asking too much. And each stone weighs about 47 pounds, 48 pounds, and they have a handle on them, of course. So let's start first with, let me talk about the curling sheet. So a sheet is actually the length of rink or the length of ice that a particular curling match is played on. At the end of each sheet there are 2 houses, bullseyes. So I'll show you a little diagram here. So you can see on this diagram, you can see that there are several different lines, and you'll see these in some of the video that I'm going to show you. You've got the center line, which is actually the long line which runs the length of the sheet, and this line is really, the function of this is just to give you a sense of where you're aiming, and also for the people who are spotting that stone coming down the ice, gives them a sense of where it is relative to, obviously, the center. Then you've got the T line. The T line runs perpendicular to the center line, and it runs right through the center of that bullseye. Again, that bullseye is called the house, so it runs right through the center of the house, and intersects with the center line at the button. The button is the very center of the house, and that's of course kind of where you're based off of. The scoring is based off of that. So what you've got is and then you've got the back line, which is at the sort of the back, that marks the very back of the house. You got the hog line. Now, when you are throwing a stone down the ice, and it travels down the length of the ice, if it doesn't completely clear the hog line, then the stone is disqualified, is pulled off the ice. Because there's times when you're not aiming for the center of the house, especially the first person throwing the stones. What they're going to do is they're going to throw a couple of guards, and they will throw a stone. They'll clear the hog line, but they'll have it in front of the house, and those stones are set up as essentially blockades or guards, so that people will end up having to curl stones around those. And then you have at that left end of the left, as we're looking at this picture, you'll see there's two black spots for the hack. Like, here's a better picture of it. And what you do is you put your foot in one of those. They're essentially, if you imagine them as like starting blocks on track. You put your foot in there, and that's what you push out of when you go to slide down and release your stone. When you're throwing the stones, I'll talk about that a little later. But anyway, so that's most of so you got the stone or the rock. It can be called either. You've got your broom, which you'll see in some of these videos, which you sweep with, obviously. The hammer. The hammer is whoever has the hammer is a noun in curling. Whoever has the hammer has the last. They get to throw the last stone on any given end, and an end is essentially one time down the ice. So each team has 8 stones. And when all 16 stones are thrown on one end, then you turn around and you come back the other way for the next end. And in general league play, there's 8 ends. And in professional curling, I don't know if there's actually professional curling, but in international competition curling, there's 10 ends. You'll hear people refer to things as throwing the stone heavy, which means you're throwing it too hard, or throwing it light, which means you throw it obviously not hard enough. And then you've got the surface of the ice. Here's a little video showing you how they prepare the surface of the ice. So essentially, it's like ice skating ice, except that little thing that you just saw is essentially a gravity-fed. It's almost like an old-fashioned watering can. That's what the head looks like. And essentially, what it does is it sprays little droplets of water out, and the person watering it walks backwards and sprays them like this. And those little droplets of water freeze onto the surface, creating a pebbled surface. If you can hear on some of these videos, you hear this low rumble of that stone sliding down that pebbled surface, and that's what allows that stone to slide all the way down. If it were just a plain flat surface, the stone would stick a lot more. Now, probably the most important word of in curling, the most important part of the nomenclature is the word curling itself. The reason it's called curling is that when you throw a stone and you release it and you spin the handle this way, the stone is going to curl in a clockwise or in a counterclockwise direction. And if you spin the handle obviously clockwise, it'll curl in a clockwise position. So that's why it's called curling, because when a stone curves, it's called curl or curling. So anyway, that's some of the nomenclature. I think what I'll do is I'm going to put together a bunch of video and I'll just overlay some audio on these. To give you a sense of how this game is played, I'm going to specifically show you this next video, which is of one particular end. So this is one end of a match that we played a few weeks ago. So enjoy.